You hear sound every second of your life and think nothing of it. Words vanish the moment they leave your mouth. Music fades. A scream dies in the air. Before 1877, that was reality. Sound was born and it died, instantly, forever. No human being had ever heard their own voice played back. No one had captured a laugh, a song, a warning. The past was silent. Edison changed that in Menlo Park, New Jersey, on December 6, 1877. He wrapped tinfoil around a brass cylinder, shouted into a crude mouthpiece, turned a crank, and heard his own words speak back to him. Mary had a little lamb. The mental process he went through to get there will reframe how you think about reality itself. Edison sat at his bench, working on a machine for Western Union Telegraph Company, the translating embosser. This device recorded Morse code onto paper tape as indentations. The idea was simple. Record a telegraph message once, replay it 100 times on different lines. No more paying skilled operators to tap out the same press release over and over. Edison had been a telegraph operator himself. He understood the economics. The embosser worked by pressing a stylus into moving paraffin paper whenever an electrical pulse came through. Dots and dashes became physical grooves. Run the paper back through. The grooves triggered the stylus. The message repeated automatically. Edison was making 10 threads per inch on that cylinder shaft. He noted the sound it made at high speed. Sounded almost like human talk, heard indistinctly, he wrote in his notebook. That sound stuck in his head. Edison called it a speaking telegraph. That label matters. Edison didn't see the telephone as a new thing. He saw it as telegraph technology applied to human voice instead of Morse code. The mental leap happened right there. If you can record telegraph signals as indentations on paper, and if the telephone is just a speaking telegraph, then you can record telephone messages the same way. July 18th, 24 hours after that first thought. Edison grabbed a telephone diaphragm, attached an embossing point to it, held it against paraffin paper moving rapidly. He spoke into the diaphragm. The vibrations made marks. He examined the paper. The sound vibrations are indented nicely, he wrote. There's no doubt that I shall be able to store up and reproduce automatically at any future time the human voice perfectly. He said that in July. Perfectly. He believed it immediately. Other inventors had traced sound waves. Edward Léon Scott de Martinville built the phonograph in 1857. It drew sound as squiggly lines on lamp-blackened paper wrapped around a rotating drum. Scientists used it to study acoustics. But Scott never imagined playing the sound back. He thought trained readers would learn to decode the squiggles like reading sheet music. The phonograph was a camera for sound, not a playback device. Edison's mental process went further. He asked the question no one else asked. If vibrations can indent a surface going forward, can the surface make those same vibrations going backward? The answer was obvious once you saw it, but no one had seen it. Edison didn't build a phonograph that day. He was too busy with telephone work for Western Union. The telephone was the hot technology in 1877. Everyone wanted in. Edison had contracts to fulfill, deadlines to meet, investors breathing down his neck. But he kept coming back to the idea. Early August, Edward Johnson, Edison's associate, gave a public lecture about the telephone in New York. At the end of his letter describing the event, Johnson told Edison he had astounded the audience by mentioning what Edison proposed to do in the way of recording speech. The word was leaking out. August 12th. Edison drew a device in his notebook and labeled it phonograph, Greek for sound writer. The drawing looked exactly like his automatic telegraph recorder. Same mechanism, different application. That's how breakthrough inventions happen. You don't conjure them from nothing. You see a connection between two existing things that everyone else missed. He wrote it in third person. Mr. Edison, the electrician, has succeeded in producing a perfectly articulating telephone far superior to the telephone of Bell, but has gone into a new and entirely unexplored field of acoustics, which is nothing less than an attempt to record automatically the speech of a very rapid speaker upon paper, from which he reproduces the same speech immediately or years afterwards, preserving the characteristics of the speaker's voice so that persons familiar with it would at once recognize it. He didn't publish it, not ready yet. The device existed in his head, not his hands, but the vision was complete. Record now, play later. Voice preserved, identity maintained, years afterwards. He understood the implications immediately. He sketched a design that still used paper tape, still looked like a telegraph recorder. Not satisfied. He had been testing different materials all summer. Wax, chalk, paraffin paper. None of them worked well enough. November 5th? Breakthrough? I propose having a cylinder 10 threads, or embossing grooves to the inch, cylinder 1 foot long, on this tin foil of proper thickness. After various experiments, tin foil over a groove is the easiest of all. This cylinder will indent about 200 spoken words and reproduce them from the same cylinder. 200 words. He had done the math. He knew exactly what he was building. Edison made a rough sketch of the tinfoil cylinder design, a lathe-like device with a hand crank turning a grooved brass cylinder mounted on a long shaft. Screw pitch, 10 threads per inch. The cylinder would be wrapped in tin foil. 2 separate diaphragm and needle units, one for recording, one for playback. When you spoke into the recording mouthpiece, sound waves hit the diaphragm. The diaphragm vibrated. The vibration moved the needle. The needle indented the tin foil as the cylinder rotated. The groove pattern was vertical. Hill and dale, they called it, up and down movements corresponding to sound wave amplitude. To play it back, you move the playback stylus to the beginning of the groove. Turn the crank at the same speed, the stylus rode the indentations vibrated the playback diaphragm, the diaphragm recreated the sound waves. In theory. November 29th, Edison made a large detailed drawing, and this one was probably used by his machinist, John Crucy, Swiss immigrant, skilled metalworker, one of the best craftsmen in Menlo Park. Edison handed Cruzy the drawing and explained what he wanted, a machine that would record and play back speech. Cruzy thought it was absurd. He said so. He had worked for Edison long enough to know the man threw out wild ideas constantly. Most of them failed, but Cruzy built what he was asked to build. That was the job. The construction took 6 days total, December 2nd through December 6th. Some sources claim Cruzy built it in 30 hours. That number probably refers to active machining time, not elapsed time. The device was simple. A brass cylinder 4 inches long, grooved, mounted on a threaded shaft. The shaft sat in bearings on an iron stand about 1 foot square, a hand crank on one end, 2 diaphragm assemblies made of iron and mica. The recording diaphragm sat in front, angled upward with a mouthpiece. The reproducing diaphragm sat in the rear. Total cost of materials, about $18 in 1877 money, roughly $450 today. The genius was in the concept, not the expense. He chose a nursery rhyme his daughter Marion would have known. She was nearly 5 years old. His eldest son was almost 2. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. 24 words. He cranked at a steady pace. Too fast, and the grooves would blur together. Too slow, and the pitch would drop. He maintained rhythm. The needle indented the foil. He could see the groove forming as the cylinder advanced. Finished recording. Stopped the crank. The reproducer diaphragm began to vibrate, and then the machine spoke. Mary had a little lamb. Edison's own voice, tinny and thin, but unmistakable. His words, from 30 seconds ago. Everyone in the laboratory froze. Edison later said, "I never was so taken back in my life. Everybody was astonished. I was always afraid of things that worked the first time. The phonograph worked perfectly on the first attempt. That almost never happened." Edison's usual method involved hundreds of failed experiments before success. The light bulb would take him years and thousands of trials. The phonograph worked immediately because Edison had done the mental work first. He had thought through every step, tested materials, calculated thread pitch, sketched the exact mechanism. The machine worked because the idea was complete before the machine existed. Edison, Charles Batchelor, and Edward Johnson took the phonograph to New York City, Scientific American offices, Park Row. Alfred Beach, the owner, was a friend of Edison's. Beach had published articles about Edison's earlier inventions. The staff gathered around. Edison placed the little machine on the editor's desk. Crude thing, rough iron stand, hand crank sticking out. No ceremony. Edison had already made a recording before leaving Menlo Park. He turned the crank. The machine spoke. "Good morning. How do you do? How do you like the phonograph?" The machine pronounced its own name with a special clearness, the editors noted. The office went silent, then erupted. Everyone talking at once. "How does it work?" "Do it again." "Is this a trick?" Edison explained the mechanism, showed them the tin foil with the groove visible under lamplight, recorded a fresh message right there in the office, played it back. The editors crowded closer. Some doubted. Some believed. All were stunned. "Mr. Thomas, Edison recently came into this office, placed a little machine on our desk, turned a crank, and the machine inquired as to our health, asked how we liked the phonograph, informed us that it was very well, and bid us a cordial good night." These remarks were not only perfectly audible to ourselves, but to a dozen or more persons gathered around. The article continued for 2 full pages, detailed drawings of the mechanism. Cross-sections showing the diaphragm assembly, the stylus position, the groove pattern. The journal explained, up to that time, sound had always been transient. Speech has become, as it were, immortal. That word, immortal. They understood immediately. This wasn't just a clever machine, this was a fundamental change in the relationship between time and human experience. Patent number 200M5-21, issued February 19, 1878. The patent described the apparatus for recording and reproducing sound. Edison listed multiple variations: disc format, cylinder format, different materials for the recording surface. He was protecting the concept, not just one design. The patent gave him monopoly for 17 years. That monopoly would make him rich. But the patent took 6 weeks to issue. The fame came instantly. Edison received the $10,000 plus 20% of profits. The company's only product? Exhibitions. They built phonographs and sent demonstrators around the country to show them off at lecture halls, schools, theaters. Admission, 25 cents. People lined up. The phonograph was a novelty, a curiosity, an absolute sensation. No practical use yet, just astonishment. Short notices at first. By March, the articles turned into profiles. Who is this Edison? Where does he work? What else has he invented? Reporters traveled to Menlo Park, a tiny hamlet in central New Jersey, 25 miles southwest of New York City. Population, under 50. The laboratory sat near the railroad station, a 2-story white wooden building, simple exterior, extraordinary interior. Edison employed a staff of nearly 20 by early 1878. Machinists, glassblowers, researchers, draftsmen. The laboratory had everything: a full machine shop, a chemistry bench, electrical equipment, a library of technical journals. Edison worked 16-hour days, slept on a bench in the lab, ate at his desk. The reporters wrote it all down. Full-page portrait of Edison with the headline, "The Wizard of Menlo Park." That nickname stuck. The graphic published detailed engravings of the laboratory interior, Edison demonstrating the phonograph, close-ups of the mechanism. Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper followed with similar coverage. Harper's Weekly joined in. Every major publication wanted an Edison story. George Bliss wrote to Edison from Chicago mid-April, "The mania has broken out this way." Schoolgirls write compositions on Edison. The funny papers publish squibs on Edison. Why don't the graphic fill up exclusively with Edison and be done with it? He wrote to Uriah Painter, one of the phonograph company organizers. "This is the last of 52 letters I've written tonight, besides having sent 23 to E.H. Johnson to answer. This morning, 103 letters was the biggest mail in one day. Letters asking for advice on inventions, requesting charity, wanting autographs and photographs, seeking agencies to sell Edison's inventions." He was 30 years old and the most famous man in America. It had taken 4 months. He demonstrated the phonograph to the National Academy of Sciences at the Smithsonian Institution. The Academy invited him specifically. They wanted their members to witness this device. Scientists packed the room. Edison went through the demonstration, recorded voices, played them back, answered technical questions. The scientists examined the groove pattern, studied the diaphragm vibrations, calculated the fidelity limits. Some proposed experiments. Others suggested improvements. Edison listened, took notes. That night, he went to the White House. President Rutherford B. Hayes wanted a private demonstration. Edison set up the phonograph in the Red Room. Hayes and his wife Lucy listened to recordings. The president spoke into the machine, heard his own voice returned. They kept Edison there until 3:30 in the morning, testing it, playing with it, astonished by it. The scientific community reacted with skepticism at first, then fascination. Acoustics was a major research field in the 19th century. Scientists had developed complex theoretical models to explain sound wave behavior. They knew the human ear was incredibly complicated, dozens of tiny bones, membranes, fluids working together to process vibrations. How could Edison's simple machine replicate that? One professor wrote Edison a letter calling the idea of a talking machine ridiculous, advising Edison to protect his good reputation as an inventor among scientific men. But the phonograph worked. Anyone could verify it. The simplicity was part of the genius. Edison hadn't tried to replicate the ear. He had found a different path to the same result. Small towns in the Midwest, schools and churches, everywhere drew crowds, 25 cents to see the talking machine. Some exhibitors charged 50 cents, $1 for repeated viewings. People paid. They wanted to hear their own voices. Record a message, play it back. The novelty never wore off. Mothers recorded their babies babbling. Elderly people recorded final messages. Musicians tried recording instruments. The fidelity was poor. Tinfoil degraded quickly. Each playback scratched the foil a little more. After 5 or 6 plays, the recording became unintelligible. The tin foil would last for only a few playings, the patent documents stated. That limitation killed commercial viability. Edison published his vision for the phonograph in the North American Review, June 1878. He listed 10 future uses: letter writing and dictation without a stenographer, phonographic books for blind people, teaching of elocution, reproduction of music, the family record, preserving the voices of family members and the last words of dying persons, music boxes and toys, clocks that announce the time in speech, preservation of languages by exact reproduction of pronunciation, educational purposes, preserving teacher explanations for students to review, connection with the telephone to make permanent records instead of fleeting conversations. Every single prediction came true, not in 1878, eventually. Edison had seen the future in July 1877 when he first got the idea. The rest of the world caught up over the next 50 years. The phonograph worked but wasn't profitable. The tinfoil was the problem. No way to mass-produce recordings. Every cylinder had to be recorded individually. No durability. Edison turned his attention to electric lighting. That's where the money was. Gas companies dominated lighting. Edison wanted to build an entire electrical system, generators, distribution networks, light bulbs, a complete infrastructure replacing gas. He spent the next 10 years on electric light. The phonograph sat dormant. Other inventors picked up where Edison left off. Alexander Graham Bell, Chichester Bell, and Charles Sumner Tainter formed the Volta Laboratory in Washington, D.C. They worked on sound recording from 1880 to 1886. Their breakthrough: wax cylinders instead of tinfoil. Wax was harder, more durable. They called their device the graphophone, 1886. They demonstrated it to Edison's representatives. Edison saw what they had done. He went back to the phonograph immediately. Competition motivated him. Both the graphophone and Edison's perfected phonograph commercialized in 1888. The two companies eventually signed a patent-sharing agreement. Wax cylinders became the interchangeable standard format. Beginning in 1889, pre-recorded wax cylinders hit the market. Professional recordings of songs, instrumental music, humorous monologues. At first, only Nickelodeons bought them, the first jukeboxes installed in arcades and taverns. Within a few years, private owners were buying them for home use. Berliner had invented the gramophone in 1888 using flat discs instead of cylinders. Discs were easier to mass produce. You could stamp them in a press, hundreds per hour. Cylinders had to be molded individually. But cylinders had better sound quality initially. Edison kept improving his format. 1898, the concert phonograph with a 4¼ inch long cylinder and 5-inch diameter. Louder sound. Higher price, $125. The large cylinders cost $4 each. The concert model didn't sell well. Too expensive. Harder wax. Suddenly cylinders could compete economically with discs. 1908, the Amberol record. Finer grooves, 4-minute playing time instead of 2 minutes. 1912, the blue Amberol, made of celluloid instead of wax. Nearly indestructible. Higher fidelity. Edison also introduced the diamond disc that year, trying to compete with Berliner's disc format. The diamond disc offered excellent sound, but wasn't compatible with other disc players. That incompatibility killed it. Edison finally gave in, offered lateral cut records and portable players compatible with competitors' formats. Too late. October 1929, the Great Depression hit. Edison ceased all recording production. 52 years after the first tinfoil recording. He was working on telegraphs. He noticed the sound the paper tape made at high speed. He thought, that sounds like speech. He thought, the telephone is a speaking telegraph. He thought, if I can record telegraph signals, I can record telephone signals. He thought, if I can record sound going forward, I can reproduce sound going backward. 4 thoughts, each one built on the previous. Each one obvious in hindsight, invisible before. That's how mental breakthroughs happen. You connect things that were always connected, but no one saw the connection. Scott could see sound waves, trace them, study them. He never imagined reversing the process. Edison asked, why not? The embossing telegraph recorder existed. Edison had built it. The telephone existed. Bell had built it. The concepts were adjacent. Edison put them together. He didn't invent vibrating diaphragms. He didn't invent grooved cylinders. He didn't invent mechanical recording. He combined existing technologies in a new configuration to achieve a result no one had achieved before. That's invention, not creation from nothing, recombination of known elements. Edison saw them as variations of the same principle, converting information into signals, transmitting signals across distance, converting signals back into information. Morse code was information. Speech was information. The conversion method changed. The transmission method changed. The underlying logic stayed the same. Edison thought in systems, not devices. That let him port solutions from one domain to another. The cognitive leap required believing sound could be captured. Until 1877, that was impossible. Sound was transient by definition. It existed in the moment of creation and nowhere else. You could describe a sound. You could write down words that represented a sound. You couldn't hold the sound itself. Edison believed he could. He wrote it in his notebook. There's no doubt that I shall be able to store up and reproduce automatically at any future time the human voice perfectly. He wrote that in July. The phonograph worked in December. The belief came first. The evidence came later. That's backwards from how we're taught to think. We're told to believe things after we prove them. Edison proved things after he believed them. Complex acoustic theories suggested you needed complex machinery to reproduce speech. Edison built a simple machine: brass cylinder, tinfoil, vibrating needle, rotating crank, 4-inch cylinder, 10 threads per inch, hand-powered. Total parts, fewer than 20. It worked because the physics were straightforward. Sound is vibration. Vibration can be captured as physical indentation. Physical indentation can recreate vibration. No mystery, no magic, mechanics. The genius was recognizing that the solution didn't need to be complicated. Scientists were building elaborate devices with multiple resonators, tuned frequencies, calibrated dampeners. Edison stuck a needle on a diaphragm and pressed it into foil. The complex theories were studying how sound waves propagate through air, how overtones interact, how the human ear processes frequency information. Edison ignored all that. He captured the wave itself. The surface didn't need to understand the wave. It just needed to record it faithfully and play it back. He saw a connection, tested it, proved it, and reality rearranged itself around the new truth. That tinfoil recording from December 6th, 1877 is lost. Tinfoil doesn't last. The original phonograph survives at the Thomas Edison National Historical Park in West Orange, New Jersey. You can see it: iron stand, brass cylinder, hand crank, 2 diaphragm assemblies. It sits behind glass. But what you can't see is the mental leap that made it possible. That happened in Edison's head between July 17th and December 6th, 1877, 173 days. The time it took for one man to think through a problem completely before solving it. Before 1877, everyone knew sound couldn't be captured. It was a fact of physics. After December 6th, that fact was wrong. Edison didn't change the physics. He changed what we understood about physics. The rules were always the same. We just didn't know all the rules. The phonograph proved there was a rule we had missed. Mechanical vibration is reversible. Record forward, play backward, get the same result. Obvious now, revolutionary then. The mental process wasn't complicated. Notice something. Ask a question. Combine ideas. Test the answer. Edison noticed the paper tape sounded like speech. He asked if speech could be recorded like Morse code. He combined the telegraph recorder mechanism with telephone technology. He tested it. It worked. 4 steps. But those 4 steps required seeing past what everyone knew was true. Sound dies immediately. You can't bring it back. Except you can. You just need to capture the vibration and recreate it. The solution was mechanical, not magical. Basic 19th century metallurgy. He didn't have electronics. Everything was mechanical. He didn't have computers to model the acoustics. He sketched designs by hand and did math in his head. He didn't have a huge budget. The first phonograph cost $18 in materials. He succeeded because he thought clearly about a problem and refused to accept that the problem was unsolvable. That's the process. See the problem. Understand the principles. Combine existing tools in new ways. Test the result. Revise if needed. The phonograph worked on the first try because Edison had done the mental work completely before building anything. Every recording you've ever heard exists because Edison made that cognitive leap in July 1877. Music streaming, podcasts, audiobooks, voice messages. All of it traces back to that moment when Edison connected a telegraph recorder to a telephone diaphragm and realized sound could be frozen. The technology improved. Tinfoil gave way to wax, wax to shellac, shellac to vinyl, vinyl to magnetic tape, tape to digital files. The materials changed. The principle stayed the same. Capture vibration mechanically, store it, reproduce it later. Edison saw that principle before anyone else and proved it worked. Combine ideas from different fields, test your thinking. That's how breakthroughs happen, not by magic, by observation, question, combination, test. Edison did it with sound. You can do it with whatever problem you're facing. The tools change. The process doesn't. Think clearly enough, long enough, and you can change what's real. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Thomas A. Edison Papers Project at Rutgers University, published March 22, 2022, with comprehensive documentation from Edison's notebooks and correspondence, and from the Edison National Historical Park Archives, documenting the original December 1877 construction and demonstration records, verified by Charles Batchelor's diary entries. These are primary sources with laboratory notebooks showing exact dates, sketch dimensions, material tests, and contemporary witness accounts, not secondary interpretations. Now back to the information. Scientific American publishes 2 full pages on the phonograph. The article includes technical drawings showing the exact mechanism, the grooved brass cylinder, the diaphragm assemblies, the stylus positioning, the tinfoil mounting method. The drawings are detailed enough that a skilled machinist could recreate the device from the published plans. That was intentional. Edison wanted the technology to spread. He had the patent. Every phonograph made would generate royalties. The article states, "Speech has become, as it were, immortal." Those words appeared in print 15 days after the first successful recording. The implications were understood immediately. This wasn't just a mechanical curiosity. This was humanity gaining power over time itself. Spiritualists claimed to channel dead voices. Ventriloquists could throw sound across rooms. Maybe Edison was running a sophisticated con. The New York Times published an editorial March 25, 1878, questioning Edison's claims. "He's been addicted to electricity for many years," the editorial stated with obvious sarcasm. Then more seriously, "The phonograph will eventually destroy all confidence between man and man. If speech could be recorded without knowledge, no conversation was private. Every word could be preserved, weaponized, used against the speaker." The Times worried about surveillance, blackmail, the death of trust. They were right. Audio recording did change social dynamics, just not in 1878. Tinfoil lasted 3 to 5 plays before becoming unusable. You couldn't mass-produce recordings. Every cylinder was unique. The fidelity was poor. High frequencies didn't record well. Low frequencies blurred together. The human voice came through, recognizable but distorted. Music was worse. A full orchestra became mush. Individual instruments sometimes worked, a trumpet, clear tones, a piano, if played simply, but complex arrangements failed. The 200-word capacity Edison calculated meant roughly 2 minutes of recording time at normal speech rate. 2 minutes, that's one paragraph, one stanza of a song. Then you needed fresh foil and had to start over. These limitations meant the phonograph of 1877 had no commercial application beyond exhibitions. You couldn't use it for business dictation because the recordings didn't last. You couldn't use it for entertainment because the quality was too poor. You couldn't use it for communication because making a recording, transporting it, and playing it back took longer than just writing a letter. The phonograph was a proof of concept. Edison proved sound could be captured and replayed. That was enough. The technology would improve. The principle was established. His June 1878 article in North American Review listed future applications, not current ones, letter writing and dictation, teaching uses, music reproduction, the family record preserving voices of dying persons. That happened almost immediately, despite poor quality. The emotional value outweighed technical limits. The other predictions took decades, but eventually became standard. He knew the limitations were temporary. Materials would improve, manufacturing would improve, but the principle wouldn't change. Sound is mechanical vibration. Capture the vibration, recreate the vibration, reproduce the sound. That truth held from 1877 through magnetic tape, through digital files. The storage medium evolved. The underlying physics stayed constant. It was about understanding a principle and trusting that principle enough to act on it. He didn't have proof that sound could be captured when he started. He had logic. If vibrations make indentations, indentations can make vibrations. Test it. It worked. That's how you change reality. You identify a principle, you act on the principle, you prove the principle. The proof comes last, not first. You can't prove something before you try it. You have to try it based on logic and reasoning. Then the proof appears. He spent 6 months thinking about sound recording, testing materials, sketching designs, calculating thread pitch. Then he built one device. It worked immediately. That's not luck, that's preparation. The machine worked because Edison had mentally built it dozens of times before physically building it once. He had thought through every variable: cylinder speed, foil thickness, stylus pressure, diaphragm size, groove depth. By the time Crucy started machining parts, the design was complete. No prototypes needed, no iterations required. One attempt, full success. Calculate requirements. Design the solution mentally, build it once. Most people reverse this. They build quickly, fail quickly, iterate endlessly. Edison thought slowly, built once, succeeded immediately. The time investment shifted from hardware iteration to mental preparation. More time thinking, less time building. Higher success rate, lower material cost. The phonograph proved this approach worked even for unprecedented inventions. No one had ever captured sound before. Edison didn't have a reference design to copy or improve. He started from principles and arrived at a working device through pure reasoning. The phonograph made Edison famous worldwide in months, celebrity famous. The Wizard of Menlo Park, the Napoleon of invention, the inventor of the age. These nicknames appeared across America and Europe through early 1878. Edison became the first celebrity scientist. His face appeared on magazine covers. Cartoonists drew caricatures. Journalists camped outside his laboratory. He gave demonstrations. He understood that fame generated investment capital. The phonograph's publicity success mattered more than technical success initially. Edison made more money from exhibitions than sales in 1878. The device generated attention. Attention generated capital. Capital funded future work. Before December 6th, 1877, every sound that ever existed had died immediately. Every conversation, every song, every scream, gone instantly and forever. After December 6th, sound could be frozen, stored, transported through time. That's not a small achievement. That's a fundamental change in human capability. We gained power over time's arrow. We could send our voices into the future. The past could speak to the present. Edison gave humans the ability to hear themselves objectively for the first time in history. Most people hate the recorded voice. It sounds wrong. That's because the recorded voice is accurate. The voice in your head is the distortion. Many people in 1878 refused to believe the recorded voice was theirs. The phonograph forced uncomfortable self-awareness on millions. That changed reality psychologically, not just technically. The preserved voices of dead people became possible. Before 1878, when someone died, their voice died. Memory faded. After 1878, voices could outlive bodies. Parents could speak to children they'd never meet. The dead could address the living. This terrified some. Death was supposed to be final. The phonograph violated that boundary. A recorded voice exists in strange immortality, frozen at one moment, speaking forever. The phonograph also revealed information in human voice beyond words. Tone carries emotion. Pace carries urgency. Volume carries confidence. Edison predicted the device would preserve languages by exact reproduction. He was right. Linguists began recording native speakers of endangered languages. Some languages survive only in phonograph recordings. The voices of last speakers persist. That's time travel. A voice from 1890 speaking in 2025. 135 years collapsing. After December 6th, 1877, it was inevitable. Edison's cognitive leap transformed the impossible into the obvious. The graphophone followed within 10 years. Magnetic tape by the 1930s. Digital recording by the 1970s. Each built on Edison's principle: capture vibration, store vibration, recreate vibration. Then it was always capturable, we just hadn't figured out how. If the physics allows it, the technology is possible. The only question is method. Edison found the method: vibrating diaphragm, moving stylus, recording surface. 3 components. That's all it took to permanently change civilization. Nothing exotic, nothing expensive. The breakthrough wasn't in the materials, it was in the arrangement. He put existing pieces together in a new pattern. The pattern worked because the thinking was correct. If your thinking is correct, simple tools are sufficient. If your thinking is incorrect, sophisticated tools won't help. Edison thought correctly about sound recording. Therefore, his simple device worked. That's the mental process that changed reality. Correct thinking applied to available tools produces breakthrough results. Except it's not temporary anymore. It hasn't been since December 6th, 1877. Edison ended the transience of sound. He made the temporary permanent. He gave humanity power over one of time's fundamental rules. That sounds die. Now sounds live. They live in recordings, in archives, in digital files, in your streaming library. Every preserved voice, every captured song, every audio artifact traces back to Edison's mental leap in 1877. The leap from telegraph to telephone to phonograph. 4 thoughts, 173 days. 1 working device. Reality changed. That's how it happens. Notice, question, combine, test. Reality yields to clear thinking. Edison proved it. The phonograph is the receipt,